Dash network from the second quarter. We'd also like to share our latest observations on the digital asset markets and our place within it. And as with all of our quarterly calls, we'll start with a brief overview of Dash and Dash Core Group's strategy. We'll also discuss the network's performance metrics. Latest observation. Apologies, I'm getting some feedback. Can you hear me okay? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We'll discuss the Dash Network's performance metrics. Glenn will walk us through an update on Dash Core Group's financials, including our balance sheet and income statement. And as you'll see, we continued to reduce our expenditures and rebuild reserves to ensure a much healthier position than last quarter. Now that the migration to 0.14 was completed in July, Bob Carroll will walk us through an update to our roadmap, including our anticipated timing for version 1.0 going to public testnet. I'll then give an update on our progress against our growth plans, updates on our legal activities, including recent work on PrivateSend, and conclude with some views on our outlook. Before we get into the detail, I'd like to share my thoughts on the market overall. While the crypto markets are clearly in recovery at this point, the primary beneficiary thus far has been Bitcoin. The second quarter of 2019 saw market capitalization increase about 115% from 144 billion to 312 billion. But about 3/4 of that growth was in Bitcoin, causing Bitcoin dominance to increase from 52% to 62% so far this year. And literally all of that dominance gain came in the second quarter and has continued into the third quarter, standing this week at what I consider to be a pretty astounding 68%, the highest level since the first alt season began back in 2017. After outperforming the altcoin market in the first quarter, Dash's growth, although still impressive, fell short of the industry growth rate in Q2 by about 10%. And beyond price performance, the Dash network continued expanding in terms of user activity. Year-on-year growth was flat, strongly positive across a range of key metrics. And in particular, we continued posting transaction count increases both year-on-year and quarter-on-quarter. And in fact, excluding the estimated effects of last year's stress tests, we hit a new record economic transaction count this quarter. So we'll go over those numbers, as well as a new record number of active wallets. In addition to the network metrics, we're also seeing increased signs of success from partners in each of our target markets. Dash is seeing greater acceptance and greater use for payments over time. For example, Dash has long been the leader on the AnyPay payment platform, used more frequently than Bitcoin for purchases. And Dash has led the monthly transaction counts ahead of even Bitcoin on Shop and Bit and Crypto Buyer Pay several months this year. We also have some updates on gambling markets, where Dash has made incredible inroads with a number of gaming sites. And while Dash is often accepted alongside other cryptocurrencies on these sites, it is sometimes the only cryptocurrency accepted or offers the fastest deposit times compared with other funding options, including other cryptocurrencies. So we are seeing some differentiated adoption there. And recent price drops aside, we continue to witness Dash's adoption and growing use in the markets that we are targeting. You'll see that Dash Core Group has improved its own financial position to support the network in a more stable way, and you'll see that our strategy continues to yield results and evolve based on what we're seeing in the markets. So first, what is Dash? We always start with an overview of Dash. Our goal is to provide a greater degree of financial freedom for everyone by providing the world with better money. Our brand identity continues to focus on the individual with your money, your way, really highlighting the benefits of Dash. We're targeting individuals, businesses, and developers by addressing problems we see in the payments industry that cryptocurrency and Dash's speed can address. We attract those users with a borderless, fast, inexpensive, secure, and easy to use payment network. And we feature instant payments for under $1 with enhanced user security and privacy. These features make Dash ideal for both online and point of sale purchases. Dash consists of many components, including the Dash currency, which is used to facilitate payments, and the network upon which users interact. We're working our way towards greater flexibility for developers by introducing the ability to build and easily integrate applications designed for use on the Dash network. And we believe these are the components that are necessary to compete within the payments industry and deliver value to our users and merchants. Next slide. So we've been talking for a long time about the concept of evolution. And now that the release of the first evolution components are around the corner, we want to spend a little bit of time clarifying what evolution is and the components that are coming out with the next release. The primary component of is really the Dash platform, upon which all the other features can be built. Platform has been designed in such a way that it is highly extensible and flexible, and that allows Dash Core Group or any third party to build decentralized applications and enhance payment functionality. Because of dependencies, we need to release Dash Platform first, and the network must migrate to that version before we can start introducing applications to run on it. So Dash Platform will be released first. It will add application storage and a decentralized API to the network. And once the migration to Dash Platform is complete, we'll introduce the first application. Probably what many of you think when you think of evolution, and that is the DashPay application. That's the application that will allow users to register a unique network-wide username, create contact lists, create a profile, and transact with other users in a peer-to-peer fashion, similar to the experience of using Venmo or Square's Cash App. However, Dash Platform will enable us to start building applications for merchants as well, applications that can interact with DashPay. Merchant-facing applications will introduce new capabilities that address their unique needs, such as multi-party access or the ability to request DashPay profile information, such as shipping addresses from customers' DashPay wallets. We'll introduce an offers application that allows users to follow offers from their favorite merchants, and that allows merchants to push offers to their followers. Users will have the ability to forward attractive offers to users in their contacts list. Reward applications will enable merchants to attract Dash users by participating in optional rewards programs. So in short, we're at the very beginning of the evolution rollout. Many innovations are yet to come after DashPay is released. We have many ideas about how we can enhance the customer and merchant experiences with the Dash network. And honestly, we can't wait to see what other solutions developers are able to build using the Dash Platform APIs, data storage, and software development kits that will be available to everyone. Next slide. Our growth strategy consists not only on great product that puts users first, but also on establishing credible paths to growth in a variety of markets. And those are the markets that, as we said in the past, are the best fit or have the greatest need for cryptocurrencies, and Dash in particular due to its unique attributes. Version 0.14 was released during Q4, which introduced chain locks and chained instant send. With these new capabilities, the network is now delivering a user experience that's really unmatched by any other cryptocurrency network. The markets we're targeting are those with the greatest need and greatest fit. And these markets tend to be underserved by existing payment systems. Venezuela is proving to be a great market for Dash, not only because of hyperinflation, but because of the limits that their local payment systems can do encounter. The cannabis markets, including suppliers such as testing laboratories and complementary products. These are areas of finance that are largely excluded from banking and payment systems. Improving the movement of value between exchanges using our instant send technology is the way that we're targeting the crypto trading markets. Our remittances strategy is seeing success throughout Latin America. And then for high chargeback categories, we're focused on online gambling, esports, and sports betting and fantasy sports betting. As we've continued targeting these markets, we've learned a lot about what's working best, and we're seeing continued traction in each of these markets. But our strategy has changed slightly to incorporate lessons that we've learned thus far, and we'll go over those. First, in our remittance strategy, we've expanded from strictly focusing on the US to Mexico corridor to a broader Latin American-wide approach. There's several reasons for that. One is that there are clear strategies with our Venezuela strategy by enabling fiat trading pairs in the countries to which Venezuelans have fled, so that family can send a usable currency back home to supplement their loved ones. And it really helps our Venezuela strategy as well by providing a source of funds into the country. We're continuing with our efforts in Mexico as well, however. And in fact, we just announced our first Mexican peso trading pair this week, which was obviously necessary for our plans in Mexico. We also plan to put a lot more focus on the gaming markets. Dash has already been integrated into dozens of gaming sites and is frequently differentiated on those platforms as the fastest deposit method. We believe additional focus within this industry is warranted because of the success that we've seen there so far. This week, we also kicked off a major education campaign with exchanges regarding our instant send and chain locks technology. I also just published a paper this morning, if you haven't seen it, on private send and compliance regulations, and basically make the case that there is no differentiated compliance risk with Dash compared to Bitcoin. And using that information, we're going to be targeting quality over quantity during this educational campaign, with most of our efforts directed towards the most relevant exchanges or exchanges that can bring us new fiat trading pairs, particularly in Latin America, of course. In Venezuela, thanks to the work of the many teams operating there, we are able to attract large merchant service operators, such as point of sale providers and payment processors that can bring scale quickly compared to signing up individual merchants. With the acceptance we have within the country today, these conversations are now possible. And that's thanks to the work of the many teams that have done some sort of efforts within Venezuela. And there are quite a few teams. So we're aiming to capture larger integrations going forward in Venezuela. Again, quality over the quantity of integrations. And we're really looking for scale integrations that bring thousands of merchants. So these are the main alterations to our strategy, and we'll continue to refine them based on our observations in the market. But we've really seen a great deal of success in all of them and plan to continue. Moving on to market performance. Volatility in the first quarter did increase by about 24% compared to Q1. Notably, though, Q1 was a multi-year low, the lowest level of volatility that we had seen since 2016, actually. And so volatility in kind of a broader context remained quite low compared to historical metrics. Median transaction fees were higher, mostly due to a higher average price during the quarter, and other metrics were mixed around users. While year-on-year user metrics all showed double-digit growth, we did see some flattish metrics compared to the previous quarter in active addresses and addresses with greater than $1 balance. We did see an uptick in the number of active mobile wallets, which increased 27% during the quarter and actually hit a new record. Q2 also saw most of our usage metrics increase. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, excluding the effects of the stress test conducted last year, the network hit a new record there of 1.16 million economic transactions. Median transaction values were consistent with those measured over the last year, which has ranged as high as $30 and as low as $10. This continues to illustrate the usage of Dash for everyday purchases, and we're kind of right in the middle of the range right now at about $20. Instant Send use increased primarily due to automatic Instant Send being enabled during April, which upgraded all transactions with 4 or fewer inputs automatically. Starting partway through July, all transactions are now upgraded, so this metric will become less meaningful going forward after Q3. Chain locks were not yet implemented by the end of the quarter, at which time just 3 miners were needed to constitute 51% of the network hash rate. With chain locks now active as of early July, that mitigates the risk of chain reorgs, including 51% attacks. Dash supply expansion is notably now under 9% annually. Price and market cap expanded 56 and 59% respectively during the quarter. Of course, we've seen a significant pullback during the month of July. And customer support tickets, although not on this page, there is an appendix page that you can see after the call. Those increased significantly as well. And notably, we noticed a higher share of our tickets were from Spanish speakers this quarter. And that is perhaps indicative of growth in Latin America. You'll be able to access those charts on support tickets in the appendix after the call. At this point, I will turn it over to Glenn to walk us through Dash Core Group's financial situation at the end of the quarter.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Hello, everybody. I'm Glenn Austin, Dash Core Group CFO. We're going to cover the second quarter 2019 financial results here today. First, some disclosures. Our accounting is conducted in USD to provide a stable picture of our financials. And since we use mark-to-market accounting for our holdings of Dash, we're not reporting in accordance with US GAAP. So now let's dive in by reviewing the balance sheet. Total assets increased 46% quarter over quarter to $1.4 million. This growth in the balance sheet was fueled largely by us deliberately working on increasing our USD reserve in core team salaries account. In that account, roughly $200,000 out of the $700,000 is related to salaries accrued in June of 2019. And those liabilities are reflected in our accounts payable and accrued expenses line further down. Our unencumbered core team salaries reserve at the end of June stood at roughly $500,000, or around 2 months worth of compensation expense. Since quarter end, we've made additional progress in growing our compensation reserve, and we're now getting close to reaching the minimum reserve we would like in place, which is roughly 3 months runway. To continue building that reserve, we'll be posting another multi-month core team compensation proposal to the Dash network tomorrow. A full 76% of our assets as of June 30th resided in 3 accounts: core team salaries, business development, and marketing and travel. I've already covered the core team salaries account. Within business development, we have earmarked the majority of our funds towards future integrations that are heavily aligned with the strategies Ryan discussed earlier on this call. On the marketing and travel side, we have allocated funds towards several internal workshops, including a Dash core group developer meeting in Europe and a leadership meeting that happened in July in Arizona, and general travel needs. And then the remaining funds within that budget have been allocated towards translations, a presence at a conference named Money 2020, and adoption workshops. We anticipate posting funding proposals related to both business development and travel in the fourth quarter of this year to replenish those accounts. As I've already mentioned, our liabilities are mostly related to work our subcontractors performed in June 2019 that had not been paid out as of end of day June 30th, as well as roughly $8,000 we currently hold in our escrow accounts. We also took out a small bank loan with a low interest rate in order to start building a credit history for Dash Core Group. This is included in the other current liabilities line. In the second quarter, we had a gain of $384,000, primarily driven by our deliberate strategy of building up our core team salaries reserve. Next slide, please. Now let's go through the income statement. Dash Core Group received revenue of $1.4 million from the Dash network in the second quarter of 2019. Revenue exceeded expenses by $339,000 during the quarter. Most of that difference was used to continue to build up the aforementioned compensation reserve. At $771,000, a full 73% of our expenses were related to compensation during the quarter. Compensation expense was lower by 10% compared to Q1 because of the reduction in team size that happened in March 2019. We had roughly $280,000 non-compensation expenses during Q2. These were primarily driven by three areas: professional fees, business development, marketing and public relations expenses, as well as general admin expenses. We continue to prioritize our spend and allocated funds to those initiatives that had the highest impact for the Dash network. Non-compensation expenses had a slight uptick versus the first quarter of 2019. The biggest expense was $102,000 for professional fees related to legal, accounting, and other expenses. The largest of these categories were costs associated with Private Send initiative that Ryan mentioned earlier on this call, final completion of legal work for the Dash Investment Foundation, as well as our typical monthly recurring legal expenses. The second largest expense line at $71,000 was for business development, public relations, and marketing. Roughly 40% of the expenses for public relations work performed on behalf of the network. So even though the network now selects and funds its own PR firm, the actual Dash from the PR proposal is still sent to a Dash Core Group controlled wallet and then used to pay the invoices for the PR firm. So the revenue and expenses associated with the initiative does flow through our financial statements. The balance of the expense for the category was for business development and marketing. Within business development, we spend money judiciously on some already announced integrations, including eGifter, Aircoins, Crypto.com, and CryptoBuyer. In addition, we saw increased traction within the gambling sector, even though we haven't directed resources into that vertical yet. Our expectation is that we'll be spending more in this area in the future. Ryan will touch upon that in more detail later in the presentation. Within marketing and travel, we didn't spend much in the second quarter. The bulk of marketing expenses went to translators that worked on our website, as well as documentation. The majority of the funds spent for travel was related to a developer meetup in a low-cost location in Eastern Europe. Finally, the third largest expense at $54,000 was for general and admin expenses. The bulk of this expense line is related to infrastructure and computer software subscriptions. This line item also includes corporate insurance costs as well as Dash that is burned when we submit funding proposals. As far as gains and losses, for the second consecutive quarter, we managed to record a small gain. For this quarter, it was $43,000. This gain was generated by a timing difference between receiving the funds from the Dash network and the lag it takes to liquidate the Dash in the open market. As a policy over the last few quarters, we have been liquidating the remainder of Dash we receive from the network after processing our Dash-denominated monthly invoices. This liquidation is gradual and happens throughout each month. Overall, we anticipate Dash-related gains and losses to average 0 over the long term. Net income for Q2 2019 was $384,000. So in conclusion, the second quarter was a strong quarter for Dash Core Group. Throughout the quarter, the price of Dash was increasing, and we were able to replenish our reserves and allocate capital to the areas where we believe we can have the most impact to the Dash network. Our balance sheet has strengthened significantly and can withstand another potential downturn in the cryptocurrency markets. Overall, I would say our financial health is solid. Next, Bob will give us an update around technology.
Great, thanks, Glenn. Appreciate that. We'll start with a technology roadmap. This is really the development roadmap put together in combination with the development teams and the product owners that we have for each of these products. I feel like we're hitting a nice stride as far as repeatability of the format of the roadmap. So hopefully this is helpful for everybody, and it's helpful as it guides us in our efforts internally. So to look back at Q2, it was I think this one will go down in history as a very successful quarter with a very significant release on mainnet for Dash Core version 0.14. The significance is due to the foundational features that were put into that release, specifically the long-living masternode quorums, and this built on the significant features that were also developed in or released in 0.13 earlier in 2019. The long-living masternode quorums are really leveraging the strength of the masternodes in our network. We've built in distributed key generation for these quorums to be formed, build consensus, and be able to handle various types of transactions, sophisticated transactions on our network. And the significance of this feature is that it's not a single use. It has multiple uses in various use cases, some of which we'll talk about because they've already been delivered. The use of these quorums includes, or the functionality of these quorums includes the ability to flag other nodes that may not be responding or playing well inside of the quorums, and actually have those nodes banned. So obviously, we want everybody to be good actors inside these quorums. We expect that when we're building consensus. And as we rolled out 0.14, these quorums began to form, again, of different types for different use cases. We looked at not only whether they were forming consensus, but whether they were working with their flagging and banning mechanisms as well. And it has been a wonderful thing to watch this technology roll out and be successful as it has been. In addition to the release of 0.14 to mainnet, obviously we want to take a cautious approach to the releases, and so we have implemented software activations or sporks that occur, and some of those sporks were set to occur in Q3, the quarter that we're in right now. That's specifically the Chainlocks spork and the LLMQ-based instant send, two different use cases of our underlying long-living masternode quorum feature. And those have actually activated, and so all of we consider the migration complete, but we still have additional Dash Core work occurring during this quarter, including several Bitcoin backports, which will manifest themselves in a maintenance release. Looking back at Q2 on the wallet side of things, we had some additional features implemented, including a lock timer on our Android wallet. Again, we love the input that we receive from the community, as well as we're looking at things internally to always make our products more secure, and as well as have a best user experience. And so we also implemented the instant send ability using QR codes. In the third quarter that we're in right now on Dash Wallet, we'll be performing an integration with Uphold that will allow an easy transfer of funds to and from an Uphold account, as well as abilities to buy and sell from an Uphold account from within the app. Again, implementing or focusing on the user experience there for improvements on that, as well as ensuring that it's secure. And so we're using secure web views for the actual buying and selling of that. We're also adding in some price sourcing improvements. So we have some redundancy built into the prices that we receive and that are displayed in the app, and as well as achieving consistency in the prices displayed across both Android and iOS platforms. Looking ahead, so we've got a busy quarter right now in Q3, and looking ahead into Q4, the most significant effort that we have is really on delivery of an Evo component, which would be Dash Platform. And as we have been doing for the last year, we're setting dates for testnet deliverables. Obviously, we don't know how long products will remain on testnet. It's based on how well fleshed out the features are, what the testing results are as well. And but we're targeting the end of December to be able to put Dash Platform on testnet. What that it will give to as we've talked about for some time, is that we'll have the ability to handle blockchain users. The decentralized API, which will access the new storage of data on layer 2, and as well as developers' libraries that they will be able to build their own code and write against the same layer 2 data, and build in their own contracts to extend the platform and create custom apps and custom schemas. To support all of that, obviously, the development community is going to need a robust set of documentation and materials to help them understand how to use these powerful new tools. And so we will be delivering a first version of our developers portal during that time. We have obviously developer websites today, but we'll be targeting a new platform with new content specifically geared to support the release to testnet of Dash Platform. That will be the first release of testnet of the platform, which will then be looking to continue to flesh out features. And as soon as we hit that point, we'll start to look at a date for mainnet. Also, once the platform is built, one of the things that we've talked about that can be done on the platform is to build your own custom apps. And so inside Dash Core Group, we're doing that same thing with a wallet app called Dash Pay. And obviously, we'll need to wait for mainnet release of Dash Platform before we can release a new wallet with a new user experience. But the goal of that wallet, again, is to provide a easy to use user experience with a delightful user interface that makes it easy to create contacts, even register your own blockchain username if you have not at this point, and be able to transact with usernames in an easy to use fashion like payment apps in traditional currencies today. So we have an exciting roadmap. There's more teams and more efforts going on, but that's a good high level for us. And let me talk a little bit further about Dash Platform and the release on the next slide, which talks about what our developers will actually be able to do on this. So we've been waiting for it. It's now out. What should I expect to be able to do? And so if you're a developer within the Dash community today, or would like to become a developer, or know of companies that would like to develop apps on a blockchain, this is the opportunity and this is the content for you. Basically, what we'll be able to do is allow developers to create their own DevNet. So once it's on testnet, we still want people to be developing on their own. That would be an expected approach. And then create their own custom contracts. We'll have documentation on sample contracts that have been created and the types of contracts which can be created, how to do that technically, and then be able to test our wallet application or build your own as we're building a custom contract for wallet types of transactions. So you'll be able to use our DashPay contract and create your own wallet types of applications and register test identities, not what would be the long living permanent identity on the blockchain, but how to register test identities using our new Dash platform naming service. So we are in the process of building DPNS, as we're calling it right now, which allows the registration and all of the privileges and types of maintenance that a naming service requires. We're building that right now for the blockchain identities. And so you'll be able to register your own identities using that naming service. You can clone it. So if the idea that a developer might have for an app requires a similar type of registration process, which would use consensus and have layer 2 data storage around naming of any type. Think of DNS as an example as you're doing this. And they'll be able to clone that service and be able to try to build their own and extend it. And then obviously being able to update data, write data to layer 2, and starting to understand the concept around state transitions. State transitions meaning as data is in one state, as an update, delete type of transactions applied to it, how that data changes, how it propagates through data layer 2, and then how layer 2 is synced with the layer 1 chain. So they'll have the whole ecosystem of all the fundamentals to begin to work with in a testnet environment. The last thing I want to emphasize on this slide before I turn it back over to Ryan is that on our last quarterly call, so in Q1 of this year, we announced that all of our Evo repos were now public. And so we invite all of you to follow along in GitHub with our repos. So you can not only see our progress, but basically inviting you to not have to wait until December when we're on testnet, but the code is obviously available for along the way for incremental learning. So it was a great quarter. We have a motivated team that we've it's working harder than ever this quarter. And it's exciting to see the rollout of 14. So onward and upward. And I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
All right, great. Thanks, Bob. Next section is growth. We'll talk about some of our business development efforts during the quarter. We achieved a number of new integrations during the quarter, despite budget constraints and a smaller business development team than in prior quarters. We devoted significant resources to informing partners about the migration to version 0.14, obviously, in addition to these results. In Venezuela, we ran a zero-fee promotion with CryptoBuyer and worked with them on education for merchants and consumers. CryptoBuyer has seen solid growth of their CryptoBuyer Pay platform, where Dash transactions have been growing more than 20% per month since January. CryptoBuyer Pay is the payment platform used by the Truckee department stores, among others. We also announced integration into a number of user-friendly trading apps, including Together, Crypto.com, and QuantFury. All feature low fees and friendly user interfaces. Blocks is a tool for traders that handles accounting, tracking, and management of portfolios. So Dash's integration into that platform allows its users to trade Dash in an easier fashion with all of those accounting, tracking, and management tools available. Aircoins is an augmented reality application that allows collection and trading of coins in a game-like interface, and Dash is heavily featured within the app. Kind of a fun gaming way of introducing users to Dash. in anticipation of the question of our interactions with Coinbase, I'll just address those here. As I'm sure most of you are aware, Coinbase announced in a blog post on August 5th that it is exploring the addition of Dash. And note that in past communications, Coinbase has made clear that part of the reason for communicating that information publicly whenever they are evaluating a coin is to enable their team to communicate with the development teams. Exploring the addition of Dash is certainly positive, but note that it does not guarantee a listing on either Coinbase or Coinbase Pro. That said, Dash Core Group is actively responding to Coinbase's inquiries in a professional manner and providing resources as requested. We'll talk about the gaming markets on the next slide, but within the chargebacks category, we also added gift cards and another travel website, Travala. In both cases, these are businesses that are offering discounts to Dash users that access their sites through the links provided on the dash.org website. Travala.com offers users 5% off all hotel bookings paid for in Dash, and eGifter provides Dash back that verifies varies by gift card. Both sites are a great way to support Dash and save money on common expenses. And of course, the advantage for the merchants in this case is that there are no chargebacks. And so it really is a case where cryptocurrency can provide benefits to both the merchants and the Dash users. We'll talk about gaming markets on the next slide. Obviously, that falls within our chargebacks category. For remittances, we added the Colombian peso via our integrations with Docs, which allows us to service the country with the largest number of Venezuelan migrants. Most or the largest portion of Venezuela migration has been into Colombia. And so obviously this can help facilitate those remittances. It also benefits the growing Colombian user base. As I'm sure you know, we have a large number of merchants in Colombia and an active community there. Alt36 continues to make progress on their consumer-facing solution, which is in the final stages of its beta test now. Actively processing live consumer payments in dispensaries for consumers that are participating in the beta test. That is an invite only beta test, but we hope to see that migrate into public use soon. I spoke on a panel this last quarter with the CEO of Alt36 at the Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo that was held at the end of May in New York, and it led to several new opportunities for Alt36. So we do continue to support their efforts to expand their business model. In summary, we continue to gain traction in each of our strategies, and we plan to continue to pursue those opportunities going forward. However, as I mentioned earlier, we are changing our approach within some of those strategies based on what we're observing, and we'll continue to do that as our observations continue to develop. This quarter, we also formalized channel partnerships with many existing Dash integrated services, some of whom we highlight here. What this means is that we're cooperating to jointly conduct business development. For example, with a particular partner, we might introduce them to Dash integrated businesses or exchanges, and the partner will introduce Dash Core Group to clients that don't currently support Dash and might be interested in that. So the channel partnerships are really effective because they're warm leads. And so we're already seeing results this quarter. in our business development pipeline. On the next slide, this quarter we conducted research on the gambling markets and found that Dash was honestly more integrated than we expected. There are dozens of gaming platforms that currently accept Dash, and what's particularly interesting about our research is that many of these platforms offer differentiated deposit times, with Dash being the fastest option listed for funding and cashing out on many of these sites, or where Dash is the only cryptocurrency offered on the platform. We plan to spend more of our business development capacity to ensure that Dash is not only accepted at the largest sites, but that Dash's unique features are supported. So we're going to be doing a campaign around this to really introduce Dash's features and see if we can move the needle on not just more of these sites, but also ensuring that we do deliver a differentiated experience for users. And that really encourages the adoption of Dash for anyone who doesn't like waiting or paying high fees and things of that nature. So I think we can be much more successful within our gaming markets if we follow an approach like that. On the marketing front, let's talk about our marketing approach. If you could flip forward a couple slides. Our framework is centered around communications because in our organization, that's the main role of marketing. In September, the marketing team will host a separate call that will go into much more detail for those of you who are interested. I'll just cover kind of the highlights today. In terms of target markets, we of course start with our 5 strategic growth markets, and we also add developers. Of course, much of our marketing is general marketing and not targeted to these specific categories, so we can't forget the general Dash users and businesses as well. That makes a total of 8 market approaches and campaigns that we consider in our marketing efforts. In 2 of those, gaming and cannabis, we've decided not to market directly to users and instead rely on our partners to market the benefits of Dash directly to their user base. As for how we work with those markets, we do distinguish between the channels that we own, the channels that we earn, and paid channels. Our approach focuses mostly on the owned and earned channels. We want to grow our own channels, specifically the website, social media, and the events that we organize because we can fully control the messaging in those channels. And it's a really engaged audience. The earned channels are those that we work with others so that they talk more about Dash. Most of the work in this area is done through a PR firm whose role is to pitch relevant Dash stories to journalists so that they cover Dash more often and in greater depth. It's really a lot of education and outreach. There's also some conferences where we garner speaking slots without actually providing any type of sponsorship to the conference itself. Both owned and earned channels can be greatly amplified through the community, and we're planning on increasing our support of our community so that we can all work together in bringing Dash to market. On the call in September, we'll share more information on how we plan to empower the community to help in our outreach to target markets. The community is a resource that we can utilize much better if we provide some tools and direction and key messaging in how everyone can contribute. As for paid channels, we plan some limited conference sponsorships. If the budget allows it, we'd like to increase that activity. It really has been reduced to very few events during the last year, and we'd like to conduct some advertising as well if there is available funding. But most other things do take priority over this, things like our fixed expenses for infrastructure and so on. And so it really is highly dependent on the price in terms of what we could allocate towards this. Any traditional advertising we do will be primarily to measure the effectiveness of messages and channels so that we can more efficiently scale an ad campaign if the Dash price were to experience a significant increase. And finally, the things we do and the key messages in our marketing, we actively work around 3 pillars. All 3 pillars are important to maintain and build. The first is around adoption and news. Every week, the marketing team is coordinating a new press release and new announcements in conjunction with our partners. Adoption is one of the topics that can still attract attention in the press. We're all aware of the success that Dash is achieving in Venezuela, and that really resonates with the press. Excuse me, this experience has kind of garnered a significant amount of coverage, and we want to actively market to Venezuelans to amplify the success and that the local teams have initiated there. We've already done a few remittance workshops as an example with other teams in the community and plan to do more activities like them aimed at furthering adoption. The second pillar is our product. We've increased communication about our technology through our own channels. We have had difficulties getting the coverage we all think Dash deserves on the latest technology developments. We are working with the new PR firm that was recently selected to change this, and we'll talk more about this in the Q&A session. The third pillar is education, which we've only tackled in a limited way. We do want to increase focus around education in the coming months. I think that an example of this is the compliance document that we published this morning. That is something that we can utilize for education, not only with regulators and compliance officers, but also with the community and arm the community with information that can combat these points of view. If you haven't read that piece, I'd encourage you to do so. So with that, I'll move on to the next slide. During the second quarter, the elected trust protectors were installed in their roles. That process is now complete. If you'd like more information on the trust that owns Dash Core Group, our last quarterly call holds a lot of detailed information there. That was held back in May. So I won't spend a lot of time on this today. Moving on to the next slide, the Dash Investment Foundation has also been fully formed and funded. During Q2, we initiated an election for the 4 open supervisor positions. In early July, that election was complete. So congratulations to the 4 supervisors the network elected. Starting next year, all 6 positions will be elected by the network, and this new legal entity will enhance the proposal system by enabling the Dash network to own assets and benefit from the growth it enables for funded for-profit companies. As a reminder, the Dash Investment Foundation is fully independent entity from Dash Core Group. And that said, I do plan to provide whatever assistance I can to that team in an advisor role on an invite basis. I have been invited to an upcoming meeting as a non-voting participant, and I plan to help with the transition. A lot of work went into creating this entity, and there's a lot of nuances to it in terms of how it works. And so just looking to help them get off to a good start. Lastly, if you turn to the next slide, I mentioned the legal position paper that we published just this morning on our blog. You can access it at blog.dash.org. Dash is sometimes assumed by compliance departments or regulators to pose additional risks compared to Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, or that compliance tools are unavailable for Dash. This is undoubtedly due to our reputation for privacy, our frequent listing in press and other lists as a privacy-centric coin. And this paper makes the case that Dash and Bitcoin transactions are effectively identical from a rules perspective. And we've actually proven it in the paper by performing multiple private send mixing rounds on the Bitcoin blockchain and sent private send transactions on Bitcoin. When you place those transactions side by side and challenge a regulator as to why Dash requires different treatment, there are obviously no answers. The entirety of our position goes much further than that, including laying out the benefits of privacy. Why is it needed? And I strongly encourage you to read it and leverage this document should the need arise. I'd like to thank Glenn Austin for the extensive assistance that he provided throughout the project. Performing zero-fee private send mixing transactions on Bitcoin's blockchain is absolutely possible. That doesn't mean that it's easy. And so a lot of work went into this. And I appreciate the assistance that he provided to that project. That concludes the prepared portion of our remarks for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you found it informative. And as with past quarterly calls, there is an appendix in the slides, and you'll be able to access those after the call. They include additional detail on Dash Core Group, additional detail on network metrics, including the last 5 quarters, and a data glossary to define each of those metrics. We also list accomplishments from the previous quarter and an overview of what we're working on this quarter. So I'll turn it back over to Robert to remind everyone of the process that we'll follow for Q&A, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for very detailed explanations and updates. So with this, we are moving to the Q&A section. I'm planning to spend maximum 30 minutes on questions and answers. Majority of them are taken from forum. Please post your questions in the YouTube channel if you have any. We will cover them all if time allows. So with this, I'm moving to the first question from the forum. As we move from build to launch of 1.0, how does DCG plan to support the go-to-market of DashPay specifically? Core team product marketing hires, partnering with any external agency? I'm assuming this is for you, Fernando.
Yes, thank you, Robert. As we know, and Bob has detailed previously, DashPay is one of the 2 parts of what we always called evolution that we'll be launching soon. The other part being Dash platform. Both go together, and in fact, Dash platform is a requisite for DashPay to work. So we depend on that to be able to launch DashPay. Because of that, you've seen that Dash platform will be in testnet in late 2019, and DashPay will arrive sometime in 2020 once that is working well. So both launches go together. In the case of DashPay, we are working on a plan that includes our own channels, the community, and some extra PR effort. This plan would require very little money, and it's limited by definition. On top of that, we are working on different pieces to add that would require extra funds that we would need to request from the network when the time comes. In September, as Ryan mentioned before, we'll be hosting a call to discuss marketing with those interested and get some feedback on those pieces, and also new ideas the community may have to introduce in the plan. We are exploring promotions, some ads, some events, but as I said, this will all depend on the resources available, because right now the full focus of the organization is putting the resources towards software delivery, and the marketing activities have a reduced budget. But as I said, even the base plan we are working on that will include the community and our own channels could get significant results. Not everything needs to be paid.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. The second question is also PR related, so please stay close. What has been happening with Shift PR since the DAO voted to change PR company, and what can we expect from them? Will there be any targeted focus on Shift's PR efforts regarding region in which Dash has made good progress? And will they be reaching out to POs in those regions to coordinate such targeted efforts?
Okay, thank you again. First thing to say, the contract with Shift was signed in May. So the first full month they worked was June. So we are a bit over 2 months into the contract. In these 2 months, they have supported DCG in 5 public announcements, including Aircoins, blogs, Together, Chainlocks activation, and Travala. Those resulted in around 37 pieces in different outlets. They are reporting and giving all details to Dashwatch. So, and they've even published a video with them. So any detail and anything you want to consult can be checked with them. In terms of the scope, well, they've also worked with us in updating the Dash messaging, basically the small snippet text we serve in many places. They've also built a speaking and awards tracker that could bring in the future some more media attention, and finally supported DCG on crisis management when it affects communication. A couple incidents we've had, they've been around giving us some advice. That's basically what they do, these parts, and pitching to journalists and supporting in these other roles about messaging and crisis. They do not produce their own content like most PR firms don't do. And that's very important to clear, because sometimes I've seen people saying, well, why don't they write a piece here or there? And they work in influencing others. On the second part of the question, the current PR effort is focused on the English-speaking market, because that's where the biggest media outlets are. This doesn't mean that the news from, for example, Latin America don't fit in there. In fact, those are the ones that have been finding more traction. So that's important to take into consideration. Also, and regarding the other proposal owners, they are all welcome to reach out to Michael Seitz, our marketing manager. He coordinates with other proposal owners announcements that could be of interest to media, so they can go through SIFT. There's already a working group that includes Dash Nation, DAC, Dash Thailand, and Dash Nigeria that work with him in coordinating both PR efforts and some business development. So they work together better. And Michael will be happy to accommodate needs within SIFT capacities. In the future, we would like to expand and do more focused PR efforts in Latin America. We, in fact, explored that a few months ago, but we found that the market was, and have some earmarked funds for that, but we found the market was fragmented, and in the end ended up being expensive, and we didn't have the resources to do that at that point in time. But we still have that idea in mind. We still talk with companies, and as we advance in those conversations, and I think we will be able to do more things in Latin America in 2019, be it with SIFT or some other company.
Right. Thanks, Fernando. Question number 3. What are the pain points that currently hinder Dash from being considered a blue chip crypto? With the obvious factors being the SEC no action letter and also their unwillingness to support a network that exhibits privacy features. What may need to be accomplished in order to give Dash the green light for institutional investment going forward?
Well, I think that I can take this one, obviously. The primary efforts that we put in over the last year have centered around our status as a security and the impact of private send. I think that the work with the SEC has yielded what we needed from it. Prior to engaging with the SEC had been reaching out to exchanges, and exchanges were in turn reaching out to us with concerns about our status as a security. We engaged the SEC, actually traveled to DC, Glenn Austin and myself, and met with multiple agencies within the SEC or multiple departments within the SEC, answered some follow-up questions, and since then we have not heard of a single inquiry. I don't think that it's realistic to expect them to issue a no action letter. They haven't done it for any projects except for one, I believe, at this point, and that one was essentially a digital coupon that was so clearly not a security that they felt comfortable doing that. I think what's more important is that, you know, it seems from what my observations are that they seem satisfied with the answers that we gave. And so I think that, you know, the SEC was a potential concern for us at one point in time. I don't think it's a concern any longer. And when we share our legal arguments with any particular exchange, they are very convinced within their compliance departments. So I think across the board, there's you know, widespread consensus in the industry that Dash is not a security. As far as the private send issue, I think we took a big step forward today in addressing that. There's much work to be done beyond obviously developing the position paper and performing private send transactions on Bitcoin's blockchain to demonstrate that these protocols or sets of rules that underpin transactions are identical. We now need to educate. And so we're going to be taking that document as well as the overall legal argument and doing personal outreach with regulators, influencers, consultants, compliance departments, in order to spread that information, answer any questions. I think our argument is very, very strong. And the feedback that I've seen so far on that document is that it is quite useful. I want to make clear that that does not mean that we don't have a commitment to privacy. We do, and we continue to have a commitment to privacy. I think what we're arguing here is that there is no legally definable reason why Dash should be held to a higher standard or held to different requirements than Bitcoin. And so I think if you read through that document, you can see the strength of our argument, and we hope that that point of view can begin to resonate within the industry, particularly in markets where there's already been some type of action. The only one I'm aware of is in Japan, and we plan to address that with JFSA, the Japanese Financial Services Agency, in order to demonstrate to them that there is no legal reason for why we should be treated any differently in that market. I think that we've effectively used that argument already with European regulators. An example here was with eToro. eToro was approached by their regulator. They approached us. We were able to arm them with this information, and they were able to address regulator concerns. So I think this is a very addressable set of issues, and it mostly focuses on education. People have uninformed opinions about Dash, or they simply are looking at a list of cryptocurrencies with privacy features without drawing any distinction between how those are implemented and whether or not exchanges can meet stringent compliance requirements with those currencies. And so this is going to be a substantial effort on our part, but I think it's important to ensure that we continue to have access to trading pairs and access to the traditional financial system. So we've really put some priority behind this.
Thank you, Ryan. Number 4, what integrations with stock exchanges are taking place? Bitcoin Cash is trading on the Swiss exchange. Can Dashcore also pursue those types of integrations?
Yes, we can. In the case of the Swiss exchange, I'm aware that there is already one of Dash's teams that is in conversations. And so we, Dash Core Group stands ready to support in whatever fashion we can. For example, with the legal work that we've done or anything else that can be useful. But yeah, Bitcoin Cash being listed on the Swiss exchange, I'm not sure on the details there. There were reports that Roger Ver personally funded that, and that it may have cost 7-8 figures in USD terms in order to achieve that listing. I'm not sure if those reports are accurate, but if those are the expectations, it may be cost prohibitive to pursue an integration like that until a later date, but we'll see. I'm sure that, with the groundwork that Bitcoin Cash laid, a lot of those hurdles may have already been overcome. So we'll work on it, and we'll see where those conversations lead.
Great. Next question is more technical / roadmap oriented. Is anyone currently looking into some sort of protocol level implementation of trustless masternode collateral sharing, or is it an abandoned idea and it's left to trusted third parties to implement shared masternode solutions?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Thanks for the question. This has been discussed since the original vision for evolution. It is in our backlog, but it has not been prioritized. And so basically our backlog, we go through it, we'll prioritize items for upcoming releases. And however, it's in there, it remains in there. We have not eliminated it. But according to the roadmap we laid out today, it would not be expected anytime within the next couple of quarters. Obviously, the strength of Dash comes partly through the community as well. And so trusted third parties who have solutions to implement would always be welcome. But it's not lost on us. It just hasn't hit the priority level of the other features that we're rolling out right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. What's the plan of Dash to take advantage of the opportunities in Africa?
Yeah, so I think the question intended here is, what's the plan of Dash Core Group to take advantage of the opportunities in Africa? Hopefully I'm not distorting the intent of the question. I think that Africa, and I've stated this before, has a lot of high potential markets within it. We've seen that cryptocurrency adoption is stronger in markets with high inflation, with a low degree of financial freedom, and that certainly is the case in quite a number of countries within Africa. So I think there's a good fit there. In terms of Dash Core Group, we have limited resources. at the end of the day, we have a business development team of 2. And so we have to prioritize where we think our efforts are best utilized. Venezuela is clearly a standout. And so in terms of geographic focus, if we have additional resources right now, I think that we would pursue that just in terms of priority. But I think that one of the strengths of our proposal system is that it allows other teams to have a go and try to see what can develop there. Ultimately, if the opportunities start to open up in particular markets in Africa, it benefits all of us. So Dash Core Group, for the time being, until we have the ability and the resources to expand our business development team, we really have to concentrate on making sure that the strategies that we are pursuing are successful first before we can start to really expand out and diversify our efforts. So it's not that we don't think Africa is a good opportunity. It's just that in terms of priority, we're really focused on Venezuela at the moment.
Thanks, Ryan. Now that Coinbase has acknowledged on its own blog to explore support for Dash and 7 other cryptocurrencies, can we expect the secrecy to be lifted on this specific topic? And can we expect more information about the possible internal communication so far between Coinbase and Dash?
Well, let me, I partially addressed this question already, but let me expand on it a little. Coinbase got a good deal of public scrutiny after they listed Bitcoin Cash on their platform. There were accusations that there was insider trading, that there were people front running the listing, and there were internal investigations into it. I don't think there were any public conclusions written about it. But what I can tell you is that I think Coinbase's publicly facing communication changed substantially after that point in time. I think that their compliance department may have really attempted to address this issue. And what it means for teams like us is that the communication tends to be very one way with them relative to other exchanges. There are requests for information. There isn't a great deal of information that comes back to us about what they're thinking or what type of timing they might be looking at, or whether they have, specific ideas about whether they will integrate with us or not. So unfortunately, there just isn't a lot that we can share. We are responsive to them. We, of course, are providing any information that they request. We're offering information that we think might be helpful to them in their assessment. But honestly, I think that Dash Core Group will find out about whether or not Dash gets integrated at the same time as everybody else. So I think that this is Coinbase's mode of operations with all cryptocurrencies that they list. And it's frustrating for Dash Core Group. I'm sure it's frustrating for the community. But this is, I think, just the way that they operate. So all I can disclose really is that we're communicating with them and replying to their requests, but I don't think that we will get a lot of feedback from them on how that is going, whether they would list us, when they would list us. And so, hopefully that sets the expectations here.
Thank you, Ryan. And another quite interesting question about, let's say, governance matters. Number 8, if there is a disagreement among DCG core team members about whether a pull request should be merged into the Dash code repository, how is the final decision made? Are the Dash GitHub administrator accounts legally owned or controlled by DCG as an entity so that developers cannot go against a decision that was made from the aforementioned procedure? What about control over other assets of interest to the network, such as Reddit, where senior moderator is currently Philip? Is there an established hierarchy of control through Dash Investment Foundation, DCG employees, to ensure control ultimately lies with the network?
Yeah, I can talk about this from a couple different perspectives. One is keep in mind that many of these tools that we deal with require an individual account that has access to them as the senior moderator. That's just the way that they're built. We can't change that other than ensuring that we have access to that account in a shared tool that stores passwords, and we do. A lot of these platforms don't necessarily have multi-person access control built in. Where it does, we utilize it, but that's not always the case. So recognize that we're under constraints here, that ultimately some of these things do have their own policies around logging in and having a single username and password associated with an account. But we are mindful of ensuring that we have multi-party access. In the case of the Dash code, and when there's disagreement there, there's frequently disagreements, and we have processes by which we attempt to resolve those. Sometimes there's deep-rooted differences of opinion that have more to do with an individual's values than a logical argument can necessarily address. And when those come up, it's likely that those opinions would come up within the community as well. There was an incident that probably led to this question around how to use the proposal system to arrive at decisions with our PR agency. And when those issues were arisen within the team, it's far better for us to address them and come up with a solution than to ostracize someone. Because if we're ostracizing someone's opinion, we're doing it with the community as well. And so in this case, we saw a path forward that involved just holding an additional vote in order to effectively have a runoff election, if you will. And the result is that everyone was on board with the final decision, and that's a good thing. Ultimately, we do at times run into issues where we do not have agreement on something, and ultimately there is some path forward. We're all professionals, and we have the ability to work together and come up with solutions that we can all live with. And like I said, if there's an issue within the team, likely there would be one within the community. So it behooves all of us to try our best to address them. Ultimately, I think Bob, you can answer the question about the administrator rights and control. But I don't think that there's the ability to kind of hijack the repository in any way.
Yeah, nothing really to add there. I mean, we're in the same, like you said, this is software that's used by all projects. We're not in any unique situation. We do our best, and obviously the code is available. If there was major disagreement in the community, the code is there for everyone. But we're just using the tools as everybody else has. If we're missing the essence of the question, please feel free to add things on, and we'll do our best to answer it.
All right.
So because the previously mentioned time constraint, I'm switching to the questions from the chat, YouTube chat. And the first was related also to the stress test, which is number 10 here. So let me read it. Does DCG have any information regarding the stress test spam attack that happened last night? Was this planned? Do we know what person or agency did it?
Sure, I can take that one. Yeah, what we know is that there was load experienced on the network during this what I would call an unofficial stress test. We have a history of random stress tests that occur within the community, but outside of the core group. For obvious reasons, if we were to perform any tests ourselves as a core group, we would be doing that load testing on testnet. But it is available that anybody could stress test mainnet at any point in time. On many occasions, we've been told in advance by community members that they would be performing one at a certain point in time. In this case, as far as I know, we did not hear that in advance on this. So what I can tell you is what happened and what we've learned from that. And so what happened is we saw issues where mempool was being artificially filled up and maintained there for a short period of time. And so that had some impacts to the transactions that were going through, what was happening in the blocks. What we've learned were that some of the mining pools are still capped at 1 megabyte in block size in size, and likely due to custom implementations. Obviously, if somebody's using our own -D, it's going to have a 2 meg block size, but miners can have their own custom software on that, and that's up to them if they choose to do that. And so that was interesting to see. And related is that we saw that some of those pools were not emptying mempool. So mempool was filling up, and that what they were doing was they were producing also near empty blocks. And we've been in active communication with any pools that are in that situation. And the transactions do appear to be spam. They're one input, one output, and very low fees associated with them. And so miners and mining algorithms have the opportunity and the right to determine what they accept as far as putting into a block. And so we've seen that, and that's been interesting. And then we've also seen that some of the master nodes have run out of storage space, causing them to crash. What we think that is as a result of the storage of instant send locks. We are now storing all instant send locks for all transactions, where in previous versions we had flushed those after 7 days. And we're building in to address that. We've got a 0.14.0.3 maintenance release that will be coming out that will remove those instant send locks that have occurred via chain lock, and those will be removed after the lock is confirmed. So that will help out for anybody experiencing those issues. And then we've also seen some real small edge cases on master node banning, as we talked about that as far as quorum development with LLM queues, is that master nodes can be banned. And if they get banned at a certain time, right on the brink of a new quorum becoming active, we also noticed some issues there. These are the exact types of things we would want to observe and expect to observe in a stress test. And so whenever one of these stress tests does occur, we are going to watch it closely, observe it, and make changes. So out of this one in particular, we have 2 pull requests that had already been in the works that would address a couple of these cases, and that will be released in 0.14.0.3, but we don't know who performed it. If people, we would love to facilitate these on testnet, obviously to have less impact. The volume that was reached, is not volume that we will ever reach organically for years to come, literally. And so again, we appreciate the efforts of the parties that are doing this. It can be a little disruptive, alarming, as Ryan said before in key metrics. It skews all of our metrics. So there are many reasons why mainnet unofficial stress test is not desirable, but we're always going to learn things. We're always going to improve the protocol, and we're doing so in this situation as well.
Thank you very much, Bob. Very interesting. Next question from the chat. Are there any plans for a future Dash conference event? Fernando, maybe.
Yes, thank you. There are plans. They are contingent on launch of Dash platform and Dash Pay. And depending on when that happens, we are working on different alternatives, ideally near some other big conference in terms of time, so we can hijack their attendance. We'll know more as the launch approaches and have more certainties. Before that, we are going to be hosting a couple smaller events, mostly for community and partners in Europe and the US, probably in October. We need to wait for, they are intended to provide more information on the launch of platform and Dash Pay. But because of that, we will be waiting for some developer workshops that are going to happen in late September, early October. And after that, we'll have more information and we'll make these two smaller events in the US and Europe so we can share all the relevant information with the parties so we start the preparation for launch and involvement of everyone.
Thank you, Fernando. And maybe the last question, more technical oriented. When will private send be available or on any mobile wallet?
I can take this one. I think that one of the challenges we've always had with private send on mobile is that it requires a connection throughout the process of forming the transactions. Otherwise, abandoned participants can cause transaction private send mixes to fail. And so it's always been kind of a challenging problem. One of the ways that, or one of the things that we've done to help address that is by making transactions instant and making them instantly respendable. So chained instant send is kind of a prerequisite to making private send mixing work on a mobile device. I think that our focus right now is certainly around preparing our wallets for the platform and for Dash Pay capabilities, as well as launching the platform itself. This is another backlog item that I think carries a good deal of support from the community and would rank pretty highly in terms of the types of features we'd like to incorporate in the future. So although you didn't see that on the roadmap today, I would anticipate that this is a pretty highly relevant feature for a lot of people. So, you know, I think that we will appropriately evaluate that, as well as get, you know, an estimate of how much resources would be required to implement it, and appropriately prioritize that within our roadmap, you know, in the long term. So I think this is very similar to that question that we got around trustless masternode collaterals. It's in the backlog. We want to get to it, and we have you know, our focus right now on evolution related features.
Good. Thank you very much, Ryan. And I believe with this we can wrap up the Q&A section. All of the remaining questions will be addressed and posted on the forum later on. So with this, I would like to thank you, all our speakers, Ryan, Glenn, Bob, Fernando, for the information provided, for the updates and answers, all of the people who helped us to create this call and presentation. So Liz, Omar, Ernesto, Michael, and also community members by providing the data on their websites and services. And thank you very much all the participants who joined this call for their attention and endless support for our project. Just for your information, all of the slides from this call will be posted on the forum and on our website, on our Confluence website, with additional slides that contains additional information and more details about the current quarter and DCG itself. And this video will be also posted on our YouTube channel. So with this, thank you very much. I hope we will see each other during the next quarterly call. Thank you very much.